What happens is that your left ventricle expands to its maximum limit and also the thickness of your heart walls increases. Now what do you mean by cardiac output? So automatically when you do any kind of strained activity or rigorous activity, what happens is that the body understands that and gets adapted to that. So here we are talking about the neuromuscular coordination, the capacity of your mind to react. Hello all, my name is Rohit. I take physical education on behalf of Prep School by Vidhyaashram. In today's class, we will cover the second session of physiology and injuries in sports. So if you haven't watched the first session, I recommend you go back and watch that session first and then come back and resume this session. Having said that, let's move on with our session overview and try to understand what all things we'll be covering in today's session. So first, we'll try to understand the various effects of exercises on cardiorespiratory system. Then we'll look into various effects of exercises on muscular system. So without wasting much time, let's start off with our first topic, that is effects of exercises on your cardiorespiratory system. So what is the first effect of exercise on cardiorespiratory system? The first effect is that it increases the size of your heart. So the size of your heart increases when you do any kind of strained exercise. Now, when you do any kind of strained exercises, what happens is that your left ventricle expands to its maximum limit and also the thickness of your heart walls increases, which gives you more capacity over the period of time and it puts less strain on your heart to perform any kind of strained activity later in time. Next, it decreases the resting heart rate. Now, what do you mean by resting heart rate? So when you do any kind of strained activity, whether it's a sports activity or whether it's any kind of athletic activities, what happens is that your heartbeat increases. Now you might have noticed yourself when you took part in sports activities in your school that when you run, automatically your heartbeat increases. Okay? So after you ran for a long period of time and your heartbeat increased, and when you suddenly stopped, how much time did it take for your heart to come back to the normal pace? That time period is called as resting heart rate. Okay? So what is it? So when you run or when you do any kind of strained activity for a longer period of time, your heartbeat increases. But when you suddenly stop that activity, and how much time does your heart take to come back to the normal pace or normal beating pace on your passive form, that is called as the resting heart rate. So that resting heart rate decreases over the period of time. So in a normal human being, it will take 1.5 minutes or 1 minute to get back to the normal pacing speed. But for a trained athlete who is taking part in multiple events and who is doing physical activity or playing sports on a daily basis, that person will have a resting heartbeat at max of 30 seconds. That means within 30 seconds, that person will be able to come back to the normal pace of breathing or normal pace of heart beating. Okay, so that is the second effect of exercise on cardiorespiratory system. The third effect is that stroke volume increases at rest. What do you mean by stroke volume? Now, before getting into understanding the increase of stroke volume during rest, we need to understand what exactly is stroke volume. Stroke volume is the amount of blood that is pumped out of your heart during one course of contraction. You know the heart contracts and expands, right? So every time the heart contracts, the blood is pumped throughout the body, right? The blood is pumped out throughout the body. So how much of volume did the heart pump out during one course of contraction? That is called as stroke volume. Okay, so that increases at rest. So automatically when you practice any kind of exercises, any kind of strained activity on your cardiorespiratory system, one effect that happens is that it increases your stroke volume. Okay, so the volume of blood that is pumped out in each contraction increases. Now why exactly that happens? The reason is that when you do any kind of strained activity, your lungs require more oxygen, your muscles require more oxygen, your muscle fibers require more oxygen. In order for that to happen, the amount of RBC should be increased. So in order for RBC to be increased, the blood flow or the blood amount of volume should be increased. So automatically when the body demands more of oxygen and more of blood, automatically what happens, like I said, the body synthesizes. Now the human body has the ability to change or to adapt to that person's changing life behaviors. So if a person suddenly starts doing extensive activity, initially it will be tough for them, but later in the course of period, the body will get adapted to that, the stroke volume will increase, the heartbeat will decrease, the strain that your heart is going through while you're practicing that activity, that also will decrease, and various other benefit you all have. Okay, so stroke volume increases at rest. Automatically the amount of blood that is required by your body in each contraction of the heart increases because the body demands according to the strained activity. Next, it increases the cardiac output. Now what do you mean by cardiac output? Now let's go one step behind and look into stroke volume, because stroke volume has to do with cardiac output. Now stroke volume is what? Stroke volume is the amount of blood that is pumped out in your body in single contraction, right? And the cardiac output is the total product of that in one single minute. Okay, so how do you test the pulse rate of a person? You see the pulse counting in one single minute. Okay, we generally say 72 is a good number, 78 is a good number. So whatever heart rate you have, that is 72 or 78, you multiply that with your stroke volume, you get the cardiac output. So the cardiac output is nothing but it's the product of stroke volume in one single minute. Okay, so what exactly is cardiac output? Cardiac output is the product of stroke volume in one single minute. So this is one of the other effect of exercise on your cardiorespiratory system. The next effect of exercise on your cardiorespiratory system is that it increases the blood flow. So automatically when you do any kind of strained activity or rigorous activity, what happens is that your body demands more oxygen and blood. Because of that, what happens? More capillaries are formed and the existing capillaries opens up to make it more smooth, and that's how the increase of blood becomes more smooth, because the number of capillaries increases and the existing also becomes more wide open. Okay, so that's one another benefit of exercise on cardiorespiratory system. Next is it decreases the blood pressure. So when do you have a blood pressure? When your heart is having a rough time and a tough time to pump blood across the body. So automatically, if the heart is becoming more stronger, if the heart becomes more stronger over the period of time, the strain also will become less. So that's what is happening. When a person, we studied earlier also in the effects of cardiorespiratory system of exercise, we studied earlier also that when an athlete trains regularly on a daily basis, what happens is heart becomes more stronger. His left ventricle expands to its greatest and its heart walls become more thick and strong. Automatically because of that happens, the blood pressure decreases. Okay, so that's one another effect of exercise that you have for cardiorespiratory system. Next is it increases the blood volume. So blood volume is the total amount of blood that is there in your body. That also increases over the period of time. Like I said, you already can correlate why that happens, because see, all of these points and all of these effects are interlinked with each other. Just like I explained about the decrease in blood pressure, how it is related to the increasing of the heart size and the expanding of left ventricle, exactly like that, all these points are interlinked. So automatically when stroke volume increases, in order for the stroke volume to increase, in order for the cardiac output to increase, it is required for the blood volume to increase. So that happens in correlation with that. Okay, next is quicker recovery rate. We studied this earlier. Automatically your recovery rate becomes more quicker, or you recover early, or you recover faster than you used to when you do regular fitness activity. Next is it increases the tidal air capacity. Now what do you mean by tidal air capacity? It is important for you to understand what is tidal air capacity in order to understand why it increases. Once you understand the meaning, then you will be able to correlate the whole cycle of why it might have increased. Okay, so what exactly is tidal air capacity? Tidal air capacity is the amount of air that is flowing inside and out of your lungs in a regular passive time. That means at your resting time, at your regular time when you are not doing any kind of intensive activity, at that time the amount of air that is going in and out of your lungs is called as tidal air capacity. So generally in a regular human being, 500 to 800 cc is the calculated or estimated amount of tidal air capacity. But in athlete again it increases. Like I have explained earlier in the other point also, the amount of oxygen, the amount of blood pumping, the stroke volume, the cardiac output, all of that will be more in athletes compared to regular passive human being. Okay, that also increases over the period of time when you do any kind of exercises. Okay, next is it decreases the rate of respiration. Okay, so what happens is that when you do any kind of strained activity, when you do kind of any extensive or strained activity, your body requires more oxygen. When your body requires more oxygen, the pace of breathing, the rate of respiration increases because the body is demanding more oxygen. But later as the time goes, your lungs expand and the inactive alveoles become more active. Because of that, what happens? Since the lungs has expanded, since the volume or the capacity of the lungs has itself expanded, the rate of respiration decreases. So let's take a practical example and try to understand this whole concept more better. Now if you take a bucket, okay, which has a certain volume, say it has a 10 liter of bucket, okay, and you take a mug, the bucket is full empty. Now you need to fill the whole bucket with full of water. Now you take a mug and try to fill the bucket with water. How much of trip did you have to do that to fill the bucket? Then in the next stage, what you have to do is you have to change the mug, take a larger mug and then try to do the same thing. So you will notice that initially when you used a smaller cup to fill the bucket, it took a longer time because you had to go again for different tips, multiple trips you had to do that. But when you took a larger cup or larger mug, what happened is that quickly you could fill the bucket. Exactly like that, your body requires more oxygen, your body requires more air, and that situation, if your lungs capacity is low, the lungs respiration rate has to go faster in order to fulfill the need of the body. But if the lungs capacity is more, it doesn't have to go through that strained respiration rate or multiple faster respiration rate to fulfill the need. That's the whole logic or the science behind decrease in rate of respiration when you do any kind of strained exercises. Okay, so next is your unused alveoles get more active. I have explained this earlier also. Automatically when you do any kind of strained activity, your unused alveoles become more active and it helps to expand the lungs. Next, it increases your endurance. Now it is understood that when you do any kind of strained or rigorous activity, your body goes through a lot. Your body goes through a lot of strain, and like I always said, the body has the capacity to adapt. So what happens is that when the body demands more work, when the activity demands more work and more capacity and ability from the body understands that and gets adapted to that. So what happens is that automatically over the period of time, your body gets adapted to that activity, whichever strained activity you are doing, and your endurance is increased. Now what do you mean by endurance? Endurance is the ability of your body or your muscle to do an activity for a longer period of time without switching the amount or the efficiency of that, by maintaining the constant efficiency in the activity. Okay, so if you are able to do any kind of activity for a longer period of time without losing the quality of that, then the endurance is counted as like that. So at any point of time in that activity, if you stop in between or if you lose the efficiency in that, then you can consider or calculate or measure that as your endurance. Okay, so the endurance also increases over the period of time when you practice any kind of exercises. Next, it increases your residual air volume. Now what is residual air volume? Residual air volume is the amount of air that is left inside your lungs after exhalation. So once you take in oxygen, once you leave carbon dioxide, still when the air is left inside your lungs, that air is called as residual air. So how much volume does it have? That also increases over the period of time when you practice any kind of exercises. Next, increase in lung efficiency. Like I said, lungs also expands. Like I gave you the example of bucket and filling the water with a mug, right? Exactly the same concept over here. So when the body is demanding more oxygen or more respiration cycles over the period of time, your lungs itself expands more to decrease the rate of respiration and to rather give more oxygen to the body in one single trip of respiration. Okay, so that's the science behind increase in lung capacity. Next is increase in vital air capacity. Now you studied earlier about increase in tidal air capacity. Now next is increase in vital air capacity. So what was tidal air capacity? Tidal air capacity was the amount of air that is going in and out of your body in a passive state of your body, right? So the amount of air that is going inside your lungs and outside of your lungs in a passive state of your body where you're not doing any kind of rigorous activity, that's called as your tidal air capacity. Vital air capacity is the amount of air that you can take in and give out at your maximum effort. So when you do intentionally a deep breath, right? When you take in deep breath in yoga, when you do pranayama or different kind of activity, there you are consciously doing, there you are voluntarily taking the maximum effort to take maximum air inside. So that capacity, how much you can take it inside, that is called as the vital air capacity. So the amount of air you can take it in and leave outside at your maximum effort, that shows the vital air capacity. And the vital air capacity increases over the period of time when you do many kind of different strained exercises. So that's one another effect of exercise on cardiorespiratory system. Next is it increases the VO2 max. Now VO2 max is what? VO2 max is the volume of oxygen. How much of oxygen your body is carrying across the body in one singular minute, that is called as volume of oxygen. That is VO2 max. We denote it as VO2 max. That also increases over the period of time when you do different kind of strained exercises. So these were some of the effects of exercise on your cardiorespiratory system. Now I hope you understood all the effects of cardiorespiratory system and its relation between all the other points and all other elements of that. Now one thing you might have noticed in the whole topic is that all the points, whether it's about blood pressure, whether it's about tidal air capacity, whether it's about endurance, all of them were interlinked. So the requirement of one element in your body, so the change in one component of your body affects all other components because our human physiology is interlinked. Any one change in the body requires others also to adjust according to that. Okay, so having said that, let's move on to our next topic, that is effects of exercise on your muscular system. Now what all are the effects of exercise that you get on your muscular system or your muscles? First is change in shape and size of the muscle. Now this you might have seen practically with your naked eyes that people who do workouts, they build up the body, they build up the size of the muscle increases, their body becomes more toned. So that is one effect of exercise on your muscular system. Next is that formation of more capillaries. So automatically what happens, your body is doing any kind of strained activity, your body is required to supply more oxygen and blood across the fibers of the body. Because of that, the demand of capillaries is increased and the formation also increases, and also the existing capillaries also expands. Okay, next is the muscle remains in a toned position. Like I said earlier in the first point itself, automatically when you work out, the shape of your muscle come more in a toned shape. No more settlement of adipose tissue will be there, that will get burned, and automatically the proper toning of your muscle will take place. Next is it controls extra fat. Like I said, automatically your adipose tissues will get burned. So when you work out, the extra fat storage that is present, like I have told earlier also, the primary source of our energy in our body is carbohydrates, secondary source is fats. So carbohydrates is being used for your regular day-to-day activity, but when you work out, what happens, whatever remaining fat, that is the secondary storage of your energy, that also will get burned, and you will remain with the minimum amount of fat that is required in your body and the toned muscle. So that's one another benefit and the effect of exercise on your muscular system. Next is change in connective tissues take place. Okay, so what do you mean by connective tissue? Connective tissue connects different fibers in the muscles, so that becomes more stronger, that becomes more efficient, and the connection of the fibers between your muscles become more stronger. That way the efficiency of the muscle becomes stronger. That way any kind of strained activity that the muscle was struggling to do now is able to do because of this change. Okay, so that's one another benefit of exercise on muscular system. Next is that efficiency in the movement of muscles increases. Now what do you mean by the efficiency? So when you do regular day activity, you don't feel any kind of problem because your body is adapted to that regular kind of activity. But suddenly in a day when you get an activity where you have to lift a heavy weight, when you have to do any kind of strained activity, what happens is that your body feels any kind of fatigue or any kind of struggle, and that will be compensated and fixed when you do that on a regular basis. So people who go to gym and lift heavy weights, they build a tendency in the muscles to face that kind of tension. So in the regular day activity, when they get equal amount of that weight to be lifted in form of some other props or regular day-to-day lifestyle activities, in that what happens is that automatically they will be able to do that movement properly. They will be able to lift their bed, they will be able to lift their couch, or they will be able to lift whatever cylinders or whatever things are required at home. So in a home also, sometimes when you have to shift certain things to some places, some heavy materials will be there, that time you will feel struggle to do that. But people who go to gym, they won't have much struggle because the same weighing dumbbells they will be lifting in their gym, so that won't be a problem for them. So that kind of various benefit you will have when you practice different kind of athletic and gym related activities or weightlifting activities to improve the muscle strength, and automatically the movement of the muscle become more smooth because of your efficiency, because of the efficiency of your muscles. Next is it delays fatigue. Now fatigue cannot be completely stopped. Everybody will get fatigued. There is no unlimited storage in our body for energy. Whatever carbohydrates that we have, whatever fats do we have, it gets stored in our body. But every person have a BEE, that is basal energy expenditure. How much of energy is present in our body? Our body also has a limited volume of energy. Beyond that will get excreted. Okay, beyond that, if you feed our body any kind of energy, it will get excreted. That means our body has a limit. Every body in the world has a limit or a threshold of fatigueness. But that fatigueness can be delayed. It will happen for sure. The fatigueness will come for sure if you do any kind of strained activity over the period of time, but you can delay that timing by making your muscles more efficient. Okay, so that's the whole idea about delaying fatigue. So when you do any kind of exercises, what happens? Your fatigue gets delayed. You don't get tired like you used to get early. Okay, so that's the whole point. Next is it increases your food storage. Automatically the food storage capacity, the calorie storage capacity in your body also increases because the body is now adapting to the new changes in the body. Okay, so after you did your workouts, after you did your gym sessions, after you did your strained activity, your muscles have grown. The muscles have grown. So since the muscles have grown, the body's calorie requirements have increased because you have to feed those muscles. So automatically the calorie capacity of your body also increases. That helps you to store more food in your body. Okay. Next is exercise and its health benefit. Now before getting into exercise and its health benefit, you need to know what is exactly health. Who is considered a healthy person? According to World Health Organization, a person is healthy when that person person is mentally, physically and socially and psychologically fit, right? If that person is not fit, in any of the category, then that person is not considered fit. So some person may look very fit from the outside, but physiologically maybe he may have some problem. Maybe that person will have some kind of a disease. So you cannot predict a person's fitness or health based on his outer looks or her outer looks. Okay, so that's one important point you have to keep. So exercise will help you with what? Exercise will improve your physical fitness. Now it will not improve your physiological fitness. Now physiological fitness will totally depend on your nutrition and your lifestyle. What kind of lifestyle do you follow? If you have any kind of bad habits, all those kind of addictions or any kind of narcotic behaviors, if you have all those things, if you have, it will affect your physiology. So that has nothing to do with the physical benefit. So if you do exercise, yes, obviously you will stay physically fit, but to stay physiologically fit, you have to eat proper, you have to have proper lifestyle, that is active lifestyle, and also you have to avoid any kind of wrong practices or habits in your life. So that's one effect of exercise on your muscular system. Now next is non-functioning fibers become active. Now you need to understand that our body has the ability to go to economy mode whenever our body is not requiring much energy. You might have noticed in many of the televisions or many of the computers there is a eco mode, right? Economy mode. That means whenever you're not sitting on the system automatically shuts off or goes to sleep mode, or the monitor will turn off automatically to save the energy. Exactly like that, our body also has that ability. When you're not doing any kind of strained activity, when you're not doing any kind of strained workout or any kind of activity, your body's capacity shrinks to save the expenditure of the energy. Now like I said, athlete's heart expands, his lung diaphragm and inactive alveolus gets activated. All those things happen because they require that much of energy. So that athlete, if he stops to work out for 3-4 months, automatically that person's capacity decreases over the period of time. Automatically the opposite also happens. When the same athlete go back to the field and starts working out, what happens is that that person's capacity increases and that person's inactive alveolus expands and it becomes more active. So whatever physiological components might be there in your body which might have shut off because of lack of any kind of activity, that will get activated when you start working out again. Next is your body posture remains correct. People may have many kind of postural deformities due to wrong lifestyle, and all those postural deformities will get fixed when you practice exercise. So that's one another benefit of exercise, is that it improves and it maintains your correct body posture. Next is it improves your reaction time. Reaction time, we are talking about neuromuscular coordination, we are talking about muscle memory, we are talking about your reflex. All those things will be improved when you practice any kind of exercises, any kind of strained exercises. Okay, so here we are talking about the neuromuscular coordination, the capacity of your mind to react, your reflexes. All those things will be maintained and will be corrected over the period of time because of the exercises. So these were some of the effects of exercises on your muscular system. So I hope you understood the effects of exercises on your cardiorespiratory system and your muscular system. With this, we'll wind up today's session. I hope you'll go through this once again and try to memorize and learn and understand the concept of that. And if you haven't watched the first session, I recommend you go back and watch that and then resume this, which will give you again the continuity and the whole timeline of the chapter. Having said that, I'll take an off from here. I'll see you in the next session with a new topic of the chapter. This is me, Rohit, signing out. See you later. Goodbye.